Here on the set, the Big Round Table, the Morning Brew. I'm Larry Aarons with Amber Hendren, and our special guest today is author Loretta Hall, who joins us. You were on the show about a year ago.
Yes, I was. Thank
yeah,
you.
and welcome back.
Thanks. Good to be here.
You love writing about the space program
I
and
do.
space travel.
It's so exciting.
Where did all this interest in space and manned spaceflight come from?
Well, I was a very young teenager when the Mercury 7 astronauts were selected, and that was such an incredibly exciting period in our history, and it just I've been interested ever since.
Yeah. So this book, your new one, is called Space Pioneers in Their Own Words. And you went out and interviewed people who involved...
No, actually, I only talked to a couple of them.
Oh, okay.
But when I was writing the other space history book
Right.
About New Mexico, I found out that the New Mexico Museum of Space History has been doing an oral history program since the mid-'80s. And they've collected 140 interviews with people who were involved in various aspects of space history. So that's what I used.
Yeah, great. It's almost like interviewing them.
It is.
It
Well, I
really
did
is.
get to talk to a few of them.
Good, good.
In New Mexico, there wouldn't be a space story without New Mexico.
Oh, that's right. My previous space history book was all about New Mexico's contributions to space travel. And this one, this oral history project is broader than that. It's supported by the International Space Hall of Fame Foundation, and it's much broader than just New Mexico, but yet a lot of it happened here. So just by default, we're in there.
We're in it.
Yeah.
Give us just a story that relates. These are not all astronauts. These are other people involved
Right.
in the manned spaceflight program over the years.
Right, there are some astronauts there, well, like you see on the cover here, Walter Cunningham in Apollo 7. We for Gene Kranz, who was mission control throughout all of the Apollo era. Right. And he's, in fact, he has a whole chapter in the book. That's right. And then I even have a Russian cosmonaut in here. I was thrilled to be able to include that, Valery Polyakov, who he spent a total of 680 days in space on the Mir space station, 8 months in one set, and then 14 and a half months sometime later. So his is a very interesting story as well.
We also have a picture. There's a woman here with 2 dogs.
Yes.
This is kind of interesting, but there's a story behind this. Let's show that photo there.
Yeah, and that's what I love about these interviews. You find out things that happen behind the scenes. These are dogs that were trained to retrieve payloads from missiles that landed on White Sands Missile Range back in the 60s. And they were able to find these parts even when they just sort of buried themselves in the ground on impact at much higher recovery rate than they were able to do with humans.
Fascinating. Now, you were telling me before the show today, was it this week or next week, is an important space anniversary?
It is starting tomorrow.
Tomorrow
is the 45th anniversary of the launch of Apollo 11, our first manned mission that landed on the moon. On Sunday, the 20th, this was the 45th anniversary of the first footsteps on the moon. And then on the 24th is the anniversary of them landing back home again.
Wow.
Do you remember that moment, Loretta, when you were a young lady?
Oh, yeah. Oh. Yeah, I stayed up all night, watched it on our little old black and white TV.
Yeah. Sure, it was terrific stuff. Speaking of Apollo 11, here's a photo that it looks real dangerous, but this was apparently part of the training that Neil Armstrong and other members of the Apollo crew went through.
Yeah, this was a very cumbersome, ungainly sort of vehicle that they created to have them practice the lunar landing. It was the lunar landing training vehicle, and at this point, Neil Armstrong was flying it down near Houston, and the thing malfunctioned and exploded. He had to bail out at just a couple hundred feet above the ground.
Wow.
The people at this point, the insiders knew that he was going to be one of the first 2 people to walk on the moon, and they were scared to death they'd killed him. So they ran over to where he landed on the ground, flipped open his visor. He looked up at them and said, "Man, what a ride."
These astronauts, are they like the most adrenaline junkies? Right. Wow.
Yeah.
What a ride.
Yeah.
What's the take? A lot of people love the space program and the whole manned space adventure. What's the takeaway from the book? As you're assembling all this info and these interviews with these fascinating people, what did you take away from it?
Well, as the fellow who wrote my foreword said, these were ordinary people who were involved in ordinary activities, and yet they accomplished extraordinary things. And as we move into our next phase now, it's another sort of a paradigm shift into regular commercial human spaceflight.
Right.
I think it's important to look back and see how did this thing get started? What did these people do, and how did it affect them? So these are their personal stories.
It seems like when you start really digging in and finding out what the astronauts go through, the whole idea of commercial space travel seems like a bad idea. You know, it just doesn't.
We've come a long way, baby.
You know, that's
have.
good. That's good.
It was not the safest thing to do.
No, it wasn't. But they were test pilots, and that's what they were. That's what they did.
If you ever go to the National Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C., and see some of the original Mercury capsules and things, and you know, as a kid, you remember watching all that, but when you see the actual capsules, or even the Gemini capsules, and how small they
were tiny.
and how did that ever work? How did that? And they didn't have the kind of technology that we have today to communicate, to guide the spacecraft. It was much more cumbersome.
Yeah, well, they used computers that were, you know, far less powerful than our smartphones these days.
Sure.
Originally, you know, von Braun got the whole rocket business really soaring using a slide rule, no computer at all. So it's, yeah, we're far beyond that now.
You're doing a book signing.
I am, and as luck would have it, it's this Sunday, the 45th anniversary of the moon landing.
There you go.
It's at Treasure House Books in Old Town from 1 to 3, and I'll be giving a short talk and visiting with people.
And that is a great treasure in Old Town, that Treasure House book.
It's a wonderful
such
story.
a great shop.
Yeah.
Now remind me about your first book that you came and talked to us about. What was that?
It was called Out of This World, New Mexico's Contributions to Space Travel. And it started out basically in 1930 with when Robert Goddard moved here to do his work with his first liquid fuel rockets, and then brought us all the way up really to Spaceport America, and how New Mexico played an important role throughout that entire period.
With White Sands and Holloman Air Force Base.
Particularly, yes.
Yes.
I want to ask you for your opinion here.
Uh-oh.
You ready to offer it?
Sure.
The whole Richard Branson spaceport thing, what's your prediction on that? What do you
I think it's really going to go.
think it's going to happen?
Yeah, it
SpaceX is going to be there too. I like the chances of that happening.
Yeah, they will be there at least for a while. They're
Right.
talking about building their own spaceport elsewhere, but we will have other customers. Richard Branson's The Virgin Galactic is not the only game in town. And I'm hoping personally that we can get X-Corps there, because they have a horizontal takeoff and
they
landing
do.
vehicle that they're trying to get into production now.
Okay.
And the spaceport is actively being used.
Oh, it has
Today.
been since 2006. They've been doing vertical launches of unmanned suborbital, carrying experiments for students and for the government and for private industry.
So Loretta, here's a dumb question.
Oh, okay.
But nobody's watching. Would you go up? If you
I've thought
had
about that a lot. If somebody gave me a ticket, I think I probably would. Yeah,
Seems like you would be the right type of astronaut too.
I'm not that adventurous a person. I kind of have my adventures vicariously usually, but I think I might be tempted to go.
I know Larry would go.
Oh.
You guys could go together.
Heartbeat. I'd do it
You
in
could
a
do the
minute.
show from up here.
I'd kind of like to see a couple of flights go first.
Oh yeah, well Richard Branson's going first.
Yeah.
And I think that's not only a great publicity move, but he's the kind of guy that would do it anyway.
Absolutely. And well, let's hope it happens down at the spaceport.
It will. It will.
So this book is about heroes and people that you know and may not know that contributed to space flight in the
people even like welders and electricians and personnel officers, really behind the scenes stories of how it all happened.
It's a team effort to get somebody launched into space, whether it's just for a suborbital or to the moon.
Right.
It's an amazing, amazing thing. Space pioneers, in their own words. Book signing again this Sunday at Treasure House Books from 1 to 3. You can meet Loretta, get your book
Thanks, Tim.
signed, and
Love to talk
she'll
with
talk
you.
space travel with you all day.
You bet.
So go on out and meet Loretta on Sunday and enjoy this book. It's great to see you again.
Good to see you. Thanks
Thank
for
you for
having me
coming
back.
in. Loretta Hall, everybody, and again, the book Space Pioneers in Their Own Words. Let's take a quick time out. We'll come back in just a moment. A little later on the show, from the biopark, baby flamingos right here on the show. It's going to be fun. Stay with us.